Welcome, everyone. Before we dive in, be sure to drop your thoughts, feelings, and lessons in the comments below. Like the video and subscribe so you never miss stories like this. Let's get into it. The cruel thing my wife did was file a restraining order packed with lies to lock me out of our home, then show up at my job with her lover to collect my stuff, like I was already erased. Here's how it happened. My name is Darnell Sutter, and I'm a black man from St. Louis, Missouri, the kind who believed love was mostly patience and follow-through. I used to think if you showed up every day, paid the bills, and kept your promises, your marriage would stay steady. I did not understand that some people study your steadiness the way a thief studies locks. They do not want a partner. They want access. And once they feel secure enough, they start treating your devotion like a weakness they can schedule around. When Kayana and I first met, it felt like the universe had finally eased up on me. We ran into each other at a friend's cookout in Forest Park, and she laughed at my jokes like she had been waiting for them. She was quick, warm, and bold in a way that made the whole day brighter. I remember her teasing me because I tried to look cool flipping burgers and nearly launched a hot dog into grass. She said, "You are doing the most for no reason," and I said, "I am fighting for your respect." She replied, "Then fight better," smiling. Our early years were blissful in that quiet, everyday way that feels like safety. We rented a small place in University City, and we used to argue, playfully, about who made better breakfast. Kayana swore her pancakes could heal sadness. I told her my eggs were professionally seasoned, and she'd roll her eyes, then steal bites off my plate anyway. We'd dance in the kitchen when old R&B came on, and she would grab my hands and say, "Spin me," even if we were both tired from work. It felt like we were building something real. I proposed in Tower Grove Park under a tree that looked like it had been watching couples for 100 years. Kayana cried, I cried, and then she laughed at me for crying, which made me laugh too. We got married at a small venue in Clayton, surrounded by family, music, and plates that stayed full all night. Her mother Tonisha hugged me hard and called me a good man, and her brother Reese slapped my back and told me not to mess it up. I took it seriously. I believed marriage meant choosing each other, even when life got noisy. We bought our house in Florissant after years of saving. The first night we slept there, Kayana walked from room to room like she was touring a dream. She kept turning on lights and saying, "Look at this space," like space itself was a gift. I remember making us cheap celebratory spaghetti because the closing costs had eaten our budget alive. We sat on the floor with paper plates because our furniture had not arrived yet, laughing like kids. Kayana leaned her head on my shoulder and said, "This is ours." I believed that word meant something permanent. Our marriage had those little romantic rituals that made it feel private and sweet. Every Friday, we picked a place to eat, sometimes a real restaurant, sometimes a drive-thru, and we rated the food like we were professional critics. Kayana would hold up one fry and say, "This has no business being this good." I would pretend to write notes on my phone and say, "The texture is ambitious." She'd laugh so hard she'd snort, then glare at me like I was responsible for it. Those moments made me feel rich, even when money was tight. The funny part is, I was a predictable one, and Kayana loved it. At least, she said she did. I packed lunches the same way, folded towels the same way, double-checked the locks the same way. She used to call me Mr. Checklist and kiss my forehead when I lined up the grocery bags by category. On Sundays, we cleaned the house together, blasting music, and she'd inspect my work like a boss. If I missed a spot, she'd dramatically point and say, "Unacceptable, Darnell. Start over." I would salute like a soldier and we'd laugh. Then the tone changed, subtle at first, like the weather shifting when you are not paying attention. Kayana's laughter started arriving late, like she was reading from a script. She began carrying her phone everywhere, even to the bathroom, even to check the mail. If I walked into a room, she'd angle the screen away. She became more critical, not playful. Real criticism, sharp and personal. If I asked what was wrong, she would say, "Nothing," in a way that meant, "You are not allowed to ask again." I told myself it was stress. I told myself love required patience. One evening, we were sitting on the couch watching a silly reality show, and she started laughing at a text. I asked, "Who is that?" She did not look up. She said, "Nobody." I tried to keep it light, joking. "Is nobody paying our mortgage?" She finally looked at me with a cold little smile and said, "You're always monitoring me." The word monitoring hit me hard. I wasn't her enemy. I was her husband. Still, I apologized because I wanted peace more than I wanted answers. The first clear proof came in a way so ordinary it felt cruel. I was paying bills and saw a restaurant charge in our shared email, reservation confirmation for 2 at a spot in Clayton. The date matched the day she told me she was helping her aunt. My stomach tightened. But I didn't confront her immediately. I watched. I listened. I noticed she started dressing nicer for errands. She began wearing perfume on random afternoons. She started caring about her hair in ways she hadn't in months. And she started treating me like I was always in the way. I finally asked her directly one night, calm and careful, "Kayana, are you seeing someone?" She did not even flinch. She leaned against the kitchen counter like she was bored and said, "What if I am?" I thought I misheard. I said, "I'm your husband." She replied, "And..." Then she smiled slow, deliberate, and said, "You do not own me." I felt something tear inside me, not dramatic, just deep. I asked, "Do you feel any guilt?" She shrugged and said, "Guilt is for people who need approval." No remorse, just confidence. After that, she acted like the cheating was my problem to manage. She stayed out late without explanation. If I cooked dinner, she wouldn't eat it. If I tried to talk, she would sigh loudly and say, "This is exhausting." One night, I found myself apologizing for being difficult. And halfway through the sentence, I stopped. I realized I was trying to negotiate basic respect with someone who enjoyed watching me bend. Kayana's cruelty was not loud. It was controlled. It was the kind that made you question yourself. And I think she liked that part most. The morning she locked me out, I came home from my shift in Hazelwood feeling tired but determined to stay calm. I put my key in the door, and it didn't turn. I tried again. Same thing. My chest tightened, and I knocked. The curtain moved. A man's silhouette appeared behind the glass, casual, like he belonged there. Then the door opened just enough to show Kayana's face. Behind her stood Lamar Vicks, smirking. Kayana held her phone up like she was recording and said, "You need to leave before I call the police." I kept my voice steady. "Kayana, this is my house too." She leaned on the doorframe and said, "Not today." Lamar laughed quietly like it was a joke between them. I asked, "Why is he here?" Kayana said, "Because I can do what I want." The neighbor's porch light flicked on across the street. I felt humiliation crawl up my throat. I wanted to shout. I wanted to beg. I wanted to kick the door. I did none of that, because I knew how quickly anger gets used as a weapon against you. I backed away and stood there empty-handed. That night, I slept in my car behind a Quick Trip, staring at the ceiling like it might explain how a marriage becomes a trap. In the morning, my supervisor called me into the office. He looked uncomfortable, like he didn't want to be involved in my life at all. He turned his screen toward me. A restraining order. My name. Kayana's name. A list of accusations that sounded like a stranger. Threatening behavior, unpredictable rage, fear for safety. I felt my hands go numb. She didn't just want me gone. She wanted me labeled. The days that followed were brutal in small, exhausting ways. I bounced between a cheap motel in Bridgeton and my cousin's couch in Belleville, trying to show up to work like nothing was wrong while my whole life was being moved without me. Kayana's family didn't ask questions. They picked a side like it was easy. Tonisha texted, "I always knew you were controlling." Reese texted, "You're lucky she didn't press charges." Friends I had known for years went silent. I stopped eating full meals. I stopped sleeping deeply. My mind replayed everything, searching for where I lost her, then realizing she had already left. Kayana's cruelty didn't soften. She didn't reach out. She didn't check if I had a place to go. She didn't show a hint of regret for making me sleep in my car like I was disposable. The order said I couldn't contact her, so I couldn't even ask for my clothes, my tools, the documents I needed. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart raced, but it was never her. It was another bill, another reminder. Another message from someone acting like I deserved what happened. I started to understand something. She wasn't confused. She was committed. Then she took it further. One Friday, I was on the floor at work when the front office called my name. I walked up and saw Kayana at the security desk, dressed like she was going to brunch, sunglasses on indoors, smiling like she was proud of herself. Lamar stood next to her with a relaxed posture, like he was there to supervise my humiliation. Between them was a plastic storage bin. Kayana said loud enough for people to hear, "I'm here to collect his things." My coworkers froze. The guard looked unsure. My chest tightened with shame. I whispered, "What are you doing here?" Kayana smiled wider. "The order says you can't contact me," she said. "So I came to you." Lamar chuckled and said, "Don't make this hard, man." She slid a bag across the desk like it was trash and said, "Your stuff?" I opened it with shaking hands. Inside were my work boots, one damned like someone had done it on purpose. My late father's watch scratched, my Social Security card bent, and a folder of papers missing the most important ones. I looked up. "Where's the house paperwork?" Kayana shrugged. "No idea. No remorse. Not even a decent lie." I walked back to the warehouse floor feeling like my life had been stolen while I stood there watching. But something changed in me. Not rage. Focus. Kayana wanted a reaction. She wanted me messy, loud, desperate. She wanted proof of the story she wrote about me. Instead, I went quiet and started building facts. That night, I hired an attorney in downtown St. Louis who listened carefully and asked the right questions. I pulled bank statements, mortgage records, and proof of payments. I asked my job for a written incident report about Kayana and Lamar showing up. I stopped talking and started documenting. My lawyer explained something that made my stomach drop. Restraining orders can become leverage in divorce, housing, and property disputes if you don't respond properly. Kayana was not just kicking me out. She was positioning herself to look like the stable one while I looked dangerous. That label could follow me into everything: work, court, housing, even future relationships. My attorney told me, "You're going to win by being boring and organized." That sounded almost insulting, but I understood. Kayana was using emotion as a weapon. I had to use structure as a shield. Meanwhile, Kayana kept living like she'd won. She posted vague quotes online about protecting my peace, and people praised her without knowing anything. Lamar started parking in my driveway, like it was his. I heard from a neighbor that they hosted friends at the house one weekend, music loud, laughing. Every detail felt like another slap. I would sit in my cousin's living room, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the couch we picked together, the paint color we debated, the joke Kayana made about our future kids running down the stairs. It felt like someone had edited my life and deleted me from the final version. I suffered in ways I didn't even know to name. I felt ashamed walking into work, like everyone could see the words restraining order printed on my face. I checked my phone constantly, not because I expected kindness, but because I feared another attack. I started waking up at 3 a.m. with my heart racing, replaying conversations, searching for the moment I could have prevented this. Then I realized you cannot prevent someone's decision to be cruel. You can only respond to it. That was the first moment I felt a small piece of control return. The hearing date arrived, and Kayana walked into court looking confident, like she expected applause. Lamar sat behind her, arms crossed, enjoying the show. I kept my eyes forward. My attorney didn't argue feelings. She argued proof. She introduced a workplace incident report and explained that Kayana used the order as a tool, then came to my job to intimidate and publicly humiliate me. The judge asked why Kayana felt unsafe, but was comfortable showing up at my workplace with the person she was cheating with. Kayana's answer was slippery. The judge's face didn't change. Then my attorney presented the financial timeline, mortgage payments, property contributions, and evidence that Kayana had attempted to take steps toward refinancing and control without my consent. My lawyer had already flagged the property with the lender and county records to prevent sneaky transfers. Kayana tried to pivot back to emotional claims. The judge asked for specifics, dates, messages, proof. Kayana had none. The room went quiet in that heavyweight truth creates. The judge dissolved the restraining order with a firm voice, making it clear the court did not appreciate being used for personal strategy. Karma didn't arrive as a dramatic scene. It arrived as consequences that can't be talked away. The judge addressed the false statements and noted the seriousness of making claims without evidence. The matter was referred for review, quietly, officially, because courts don't like being manipulated. Kayana's confidence faltered for the first time, but she did not apologize. She just looked angry that her plan hit a wall. Lamar leaned toward her, whispering something sharp, and I could see his comfort fading. He didn't look like a victor anymore. He looked like a man realizing the mess had teeth. Over the next weeks, the practical consequences piled up. The refinance attempt left a trail, and the lender's notices started coming. Kayana's credit took a hit at the exact time she needed things to go smoothly. My attorney filed for fair access and protections based on documented payment history and wrongful lockout. Kayana tried to stall, but paperwork doesn't care about attitude. Lamar, who had been so confident at my door, started pulling away when the situation required responsibility. I heard through a mutual contact that he was tired of court stuff and not trying to be involved. Kayana still showed no remorse, just frustration that her control was slipping. My comeback wasn't loud. It was private and steady. My job promoted me to a lead role I've been training for quietly, the kind of move that changes your life without announcing itself. I moved into a clean apartment back in University City, furnished slowly, thoughtfully, without rushing. I started sleeping again. I started eating full meals again. I rebuilt routines, laundry on Sundays, meal prep on Wednesdays, gym after work, not to prove anything but to feel like myself. I didn't post about it. I didn't make speeches. I just got my life back piece by piece, like rebuilding a house after a storm. Months later, I saw Kayana in the courthouse hallway during final paperwork. She looked thinner, tense, angry in that controlled way that tries to look like strength. Lamar wasn't beside her. She watched me like she wanted a reaction. Hurt, rage, anything she could use to feel powerful again. I gave her nothing. I walked past her like a stranger, because that's what she chose to become. The most satisfying part wasn't watching her struggle. It was realizing I didn't need her to acknowledge the damage for me to heal from it. She tried to lock me out of my life. All she did was force me to build a better one without her. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.